With the long-awaited second chapter of Matt Reeves' epic Gotham crime saga now streaming and every bit as spectacular as I could have hoped, now seemed the perfect time to take a look at what the future holds for the characters of this hauntingly, beautifully dark and brutal take on the classic world of Gotham City. But first, I just want to say that watching The Penguin reminds me just how good television can be. I was just grinning through the entire first episode at just how brilliant the writing was, and it's such a shame that this kind of storytelling has become so scarce. So please, if you haven't already, go check it out. We need more entertainment like this, and I'm so glad Matt Reeves and his team are bringing it to us, so I can make a video that's not just complaining about the state of modern entertainment. But before I get into the meat of this video, I'm just thinking out loud here, so if you like my brain vomit, you know where the like and subscribe buttons are. Now without any further ado, let's get into it. To start this off, one of my first few videos ever was one much like this, speculating on what the sequels to the Batman held in store. And let's just say, I hope this one's better. I still agree with a lot of the things that I said in that video, but I tried to suggest some very specific plot ideas for the future installments, which I just didn't really think through. So I want to make it clear what this video is meant to be this time around. I'm not going to be writing a detailed plot for any of Matt Reeves' future projects. I'm also not going to be considering how every single character from the comics I'd like to see might make their way into the story. There are plenty of videos out there that have done that, but I just want to address a couple elephants in the room and share the handful of ideas I would be most happy to see realized. First of all, in this video, I'll be looking at what I feel we most need to see in the next two installments of the trilogy. Focus on Batman's arc and primary antagonists. After that, I'll take up a good chunk of the video talking about the one side character that I think deserves the next spin-off, and the direction I hope Matt takes their character. And finally, I'm going to share an idea I had been toying with, which Matt recently teased might just be a possibility in his universe. But if that's what you came for, then buckle up, and let's get started with the star of the show. Now I should probably start by saying that in all of this, I will be assuming that we are getting a Batman trilogy, since Matt did just confirm that he is currently still sticking to that plan. I truly hope the Batverse continues to grow beyond that, because there's so much he could do if he kept on going. But for now, we're working with what we've been given. So while I'll have some fun with speculation, I'm going to ground all my ideas within the framework of what has been said of the current plans for the future. So what is the arc Matt has planned for his dark hero? Let's start with the obvious. What the first movie set up for him, and what literally everyone wants to play out. The emergence of Bruce Wayne's public persona. Now this will most certainly not be the suave playboy portrayed so well by Christian Bale and Ben Affleck. This character is still far too broken, too reserved and reclusive to make such a drastic personality change so quickly. But he can still step up and take responsibility for the family empire, filling his father's shoes as a generous philanthropist. The first film had Bella Real urging Bruce to help her realize her vision for change in the city, which I'm sure she won't forget about now that she's in office, and Batman realizing that fear and vengeance alone isn't enough to inspire positive change, that people need hope, something to look up to. And what could be a more natural continuation of that arc than for him to realize the good he can do with his family's wealth, and begin to use it. As Bruce Wayne, a public figure, he can give people hope in a way he never really could as a nocturnal masked vigilante. So in the second movie, I hope he realizes there is more than one way he can have an effect, and that he tries to balance his two roles as crime fighter and philanthropist, tearing down the Penguin's empire by night while rebuilding his broken, flooded city by day. This would also be a great way to build on the last movie, because the Riddler stained his family's name with everything he revealed about the whole Elliot incident. So it only makes sense for Bruce to want to rebuild his family's legacy by making good on his father's promises of renewal. But what would that look like in terms of the plot? Well, I imagine that after 20 years of the family company running without direct oversight, there would be quite some resistance to Bruce's sudden return to power. In fact, I like to think that as he begins to assume control of his father's empire, he soon discovers there is more going on within the company than meets the eye, sparking investigation. Now, we know the Falcons practically own the Renewal Fund, meaning they somehow had influence within the company, and Bruce assumes that's what's going on. But while that's certainly connected, he realizes there is far more at work, that there are greater powers at play that the Falcons only worked for. And I think you know where this is going. In case you weren't aware, Matt gave a little tease not too long ago for what he has in store for Part 2, and while he never named the infamous cabal running Gotham from the shadows, It's hard to know what else he might be referring to when he mentions deeper corruption than what's already been exposed. Even before this interview, though, and frankly even before the first film was released, fans were eager to see the court come to the screen, and instances such as Robert Pattinson's own reaction to the idea of their future appearance have only stoked excitement at the possibility, and I'm certainly one of those fans who will be more than excited to see them on the screen. However, I think most fans will agree that a foe on the scale of the Court of Owls deserved to be built up to. Thus, the second movie would only begin to hint at the court's existence. Fans would most likely be able to predict what's going on and what awaits in the final sequel, but I think Part 2 would only have Bruce exposing how his own company was controlled by powers deeper and greater than anything even the Riddler could have realized, and it ends with him officially taking up the figurative throne and announcing his company's support of the mayor's philanthropic efforts, committing to rebuild the city's trust in the Wayne family name by making good on his father's promises. He knows the fight isn't won, but he doesn't fully realize what's in store. Then, in the third movie, Bruce finds himself targeted for murder by a mysterious and highly trained assassin. Putting his detective skills to work, he sets out to find his would-be killer, but soon realizes just how persistent and deadly this foe is, as the film's tension increases, and those closest to him are put in danger as well. He ties the assassin to the corruption within his company, and this ultimately leads him to uncover the court itself. Like I said, I'm not trying to write full plots here, so I don't know how this will end, but I don't imagine it concluding with a decisive victory. However, the court is brought to light, and suffers a massive blow, Batman finally realizing just how big of a fight is ahead. I picture an ending on a similar tone to the first Matrix movie, where the war is far from won, but Neo has learned to fight the enemy, and lets them know he's coming for them. So some fans have talked about wanting the next spin-off project to be a Catwoman series, and I've heard others rejecting the idea, saying that wouldn't feel necessary or whatever. Well, I feel it would totally be necessary, at least as necessary as any film or show in a franchise can be, and here's why. Selina Kyle left Gotham at the end of the Batman. Obviously, there doesn't seem much question that sooner or later she's going to return, and I've heard a lot of people take it for granted that she's going to be back in the next movie like nothing ever happened. But let's think about it. Why would she return right away? I'd assume that if she were going to come back to Gotham after running away from her past, it would be because something happened while she was gone to give her some change of heart and make her want to fight for the city she left behind. And whatever growth takes place while she's away, wouldn't we want to see it? Besides, the ending of the Batman was a bittersweet moment where Batman sacrificed the chance to be with someone he'd come to care about in order to pursue his mission. So I'd like them to spend some time apart from each other, growing on their own before they eventually reunite, or else I feel her immediate return would only cheapen that ending. So here's my idea for how I think they should handle her character over the course of this franchise. And this will definitely be the longest section of the video, because it's the character whose arc I'm most confident I got right. And frankly, I'll be quite disappointed if this isn't what Matt Reeves does. So I hope Selina is not in the Batman Part 2, but that she gets her own solo show or movie that takes place at the same time, and that she then reunites with Batman for Part 3. I initially envisioned her solo adventure as a season of television like the Penguin Show, mainly because I figured Batman's own movies would be the only films in this saga, and all the spin-offs would be shows, but there's no need for that to be the case, and I honestly think this story I'm going to pitch would be just fine fitting in the runtime of a feature-length film. The movie would follow Selina Kyle as she discovers herself and becomes the anti-heroine we all know as Catwoman. See, in the Batman, she's not truly Catwoman yet. She's just a girl from the bottom of Gotham City doing what she has to survive and help her friend, and eventually seeking vengeance on the man who's been the cause of her entire life of suffering and killed everyone she's loved, finally leaving Gotham just looking to have a better life and use her skills to have some fun screwing over people she thinks deserves it. She's never adopted the moniker of Catwoman or done anything to make her either a hero or a villain. So in this film, she sets off for Bloodhaven and begins scraping a living off the streets, teaching herself the ropes of being a low-level thief and con artist. Yet she soon encounters another shady figure of some kind who gets her out of some trouble she finds herself in, and seeing her talent for thievery and manipulation, they take her under their wing and mentor her to become more than a petty thief. With some guidance and training, she uses her skills and femininity to get close to wealthy men and pose as a socialite herself to start preying on the elite. She's starting to enjoy her new lavish lifestyle and the thrill of her games, but then around the midpoint, something happens to remind her of the life she left behind. Perhaps while living like a queen herself now, she encounters a poor petty thief just trying to survive, and sees herself, realizing she's become just like all the privileged people she despises. And this prompts her to shift her focus, and decide to use her new skills and stolen wealth to help those less fortunate. Perhaps she also realizes that her mentor figure is basically no better than a gangster, running a somewhat organized operation for which she's been using Selina this whole time. And so the film culminates in Selina using her burglary skills to pull a heist on her former ally, so she can use the money to give back to the poor of the city, finally taking on the identity of Catwoman. Taking inspiration from Batman himself, she ends the film, deciding that rather than running from the pain of her home, she's going to return, to use her new skills to alleviate the pain of others still suffering in Gotham. And that sets the stage for her return in The Batman Part 3. Since in this video I'm not suggesting a full plot for that movie, I can't lay out exactly what role Catwoman will play, but I imagine she unwittingly reunites with Batman when she gets herself into an event hosted by none other than Bruce Wayne. So in this film, Bruce is trying to gain the support of other wealthy families and individuals in Gotham, and Selina sees this fundraiser event, or whatever it is, as an opportunity to knock off the wealthiest man in the city. Obviously Bruce knows her, but she doesn't recognize him, making for an awkward relationship between the two of them, especially as he tries to figure out what she's up to. However, whether this simply happens in one scene at this event, or whether she takes her time getting to know him over a portion of the movie, either way, I imagine she tries to flirt with and seduce him to get what she wants from him, and he doesn't exactly fall for it because he knows she's not who she claims to be, but since he does already know and care for her, he's more than happy to reciprocate her advances, even while cautiously trying to learn her true intentions. Whatever exactly happens over the course of the movie, she tries and possibly succeeds in stealing from Bruce, and he attempts to catch her as Batman. In their first meeting with him in the cowl, she reveals her intentions to use her stolen wealth to help the unfortunate, inviting him to join her, and this challenges him as he sees her good intentions and doesn't know whether to help or hinder her. She trashes on his alter ego without yet knowing his double identity, of course, claiming the people she's stealing from aren't using their money for good like they say they are, and of course Batman defends his own honestly philanthropic intentions, though Catwoman's insistent that the system is so broken that intentions don't matter, and the people who really need it will never get any money he throws out. I don't know when or how, but I imagine she learns his secret identity at some point, whether he reveals it or she simply deduces it, and this challenges her worldview as much as she's challenged his, since she now learns that the man she played and ripped off, having previously only seen him as the epitome of Gotham's scummy, two-faced elite, is in fact someone she knows and cares about, who knows the dark side of society and is really fighting for change. And so they both leave with new perspective, Batman recognizing her righteous intentions and the good her means can accomplish, while she realizes the wealthy aren't all bad after all, both finding their black and white views very blurred. And as for their relationship, while they have grown closer and more intimate than ever, their differing beliefs and methods behind their missions leave them at odds, and they end as frenemies, possibly even somehow opposing each other in the climax in spite of their mutual affection. And so, their playfully antagonistic relationship from the comics has been established. So that's everything I had to share that I genuinely believe would be the right call to make with these characters, and I'm optimistically predicting we'll see something quite similar play out. I may not have all the details right, but I'll be very impressed if Matt Reeves has something better in mind, which is not to say I don't expect to be impressed. But finally, here's one last thing that needs to be talked about. So the other potential spin-off that needs to be covered is obviously the one Matt Reeves confirmed he's actually thinking about, that being a legal drama featuring or focused on Harvey Dent. Now there is of course no guarantee this will happen, but we know it's a strong possibility in Matt's mind, and I really wanted to talk about it because I've thought a lot about Harvey Dent myself, and I think there's so much this show could do with the character if it happens. First, let me say that while Harvey Dent has appeared many times on screen, he's yet to be depicted in a way I find does justice to the character's true complexity. As good as Aaron Eckhart's portrayal may have been, I don't think The Dark Knight really captured the duality that makes him so interesting. I'm not saying it was the wrong approach, as he, like all comic book characters, has been written many different ways by many different artists. However, the way I like to imagine him, the way I feel best reflects everything he embodies, is as a victim of dissociative identity disorder. And as I've thought about how I would like to see him depicted in film or television, I have loved the idea of a story focusing more heavily on him as a point of view character than I think a Batman-centric film would allow. So it didn't seem like a story that was likely to come to the screen anytime soon. Until we got this exciting tease. So how would I depict him in a show like this? Well, the closest comparison I can think to draw is Moon Knight. Well, Moon Knight meets Better Call Saul, but I want to focus more on the character side of this story, which, like Moon Knight, would get deep inside this character's head and the struggle between the two sides of his personality, like two characters in one body. I like to imagine that long before he was ever scarred and condemned to Arkham, even since his somehow traumatic childhood, he's had these two halves at war inside of him. There's the innocent, upstanding Harvey that is his public persona, the idealist who believes in justice and protecting the system, and then there is his darker side, the morally gray Harvey willing to go to any lengths to get justice, who protects his other half's morality by doing what he cannot, what he will not. And this duality has continued, with the mild-mannered defense attorney Harvey Dent believing in justice and fighting to fix the system, while his alter ego handles the dirty work. Perhaps in this story, Harvey is serving as the new DA and fighting corruption within the system. Things have been going well for him in his career and his mission, maybe even a little too well, as if obstacles in his way are conveniently, even suspiciously, disappearing. He also seems to be experiencing strange blackouts and memory loss, symptoms he hasn't experienced to this degree in years. Meanwhile, he begins an investigation into some shady stuff that's been going on surrounding the courts, possibly even involving murders. Of course, as the story progresses, he unwittingly implicates himself, and begins to correspond with his own alter ego, who he believed to have suppressed long ago. As he realizes his other half has been going outside of the law to help further his own noble ends, and things begin to spiral downhill, with forces on both sides of the law now after him, he becomes forced to let his dark side take control and use whatever violent or criminal means necessary to save himself and bring about justice. This story would challenge the very idealism he fights for and question the justice of the system meant to administer it at its core, and force him to ask whether his principles are enough to make a difference. Towards the end, the mob end up getting to him, killing his wife, and mutilating him in revenge. Unable to maintain control in his grief, he abandons himself to his other half, now officially Two-Face, who goes on a violent rampage to execute revenge on all those directly or indirectly responsible. I even like to think Batman is in this series, and they confront each other in the climax. Maybe in the end, with no way out, Harvey regains enough control to negotiate with Two-Face, agreeing to determine who makes their calls based on a coin toss, and thus he eventually is able to bring about some justice by foiling Two-Face and turning himself in. Do I think that's what Matt Reeves is thinking? I don't know, probably not. He's probably thinking of a more straightforward legal drama that just happens to feature Harvey Dent before he goes crazy, but who knows? I just want to share that idea I'd been playing with for a while, because I got excited when we got hints that something like it might happen. Now there's a lot of other ideas I've had, and possibilities that have been teased for the future of this saga, but since I don't have a lot to say about them, I think I'll wrap up with that. Now if you'd like me to share my thoughts on some other possibilities, such as the chance we might see Robin in these movies, or what the Riddler and the Joker might be up to in the future, let me know in the comments. There's so much to speculate on, and I have so much fun doing it, but I try to keep my content focused on topics I feel I have something worthwhile and or original to add to. However, I love continuing these conversations in the comments section, so let me know. What are your predictions for the future installments of the Batman Epic Crime Saga? What characters or storylines are you most excited to see play out? And what are your hopes for them? Do you have any ideas for Matt Reeves? Share away down below, and I look forward to joining you. I've been planning on releasing another video before this one, but I've been putting a lot of work into that one, and you should see why when I release it. So I got to finish this one first. I really look forward to releasing it. It's going to be going back to the first installment of this already epic series, and taking a look at what might have made it even better. So if you're interested, hit the bell and keep an eye on your subscription so you don't miss it. I can't wait to share it with you. Until then, never stay silent.